absolutely.
Am I audible as well?
Yes, you
Yes,
are.
you are very
Great,
audible.
great. Okay, so good evening, everyone. And first, I would like to thank the NCTA organizing committee and especially Sergeant Dr. Ruby and Rashika for giving me this opportunity to share with you my learnings. And it's a pleasure to be with you all here today on this webinar. So let's begin. Um, are the slides changing? I don't know. Okay.
Yes.
Before going ahead, just an acknowledgement to these two people, Dr. Eric Byrne, the founder of Transaction Analysis Theory, and our own Father George Kandathil, who is the pioneer to bring TA to India through ICTA. So my salutations to these two. And I welcome you all for this session. Everyone here, I can see many people here, the ICTA dignitaries and other friends, colleagues, and I want to acknowledge each one of you because these all and you all are instrumental in my learning process of TA, and that's how I want to share that with you all. So my contract with you for today's session is it's already 7:46. So I think I have almost 45 minutes to share with you. I'm going to share with you my understanding of how our experiential journey in life can be transformed with TA. And we can change our narratives to truly live the life we want to live. And how we can do that is my contract with you all. And I also encourage you all throughout the session, if you're able to witness one change that you want to make in your life, and if you're able to go through with the session and do it, I think the whole purpose of this session will be fulfilled. So that's my contract with you all and expectation with you all. Okay. So I want to begin with two quotes which I think are relevant for today's webinar. And this one is the first one which has had an impact on me, I think 10, 15 years before when I read it at my business conference. And that said that experience is what you get when you don't get what you wanted. And this made me think, and the understanding of this quote is that it emphasizes the value of learning from failures and disappointments and highlighting that the personal growth often arises from the unmet expectations, and that's how we grow. Okay.
Please keep yourself on mute. This is a
Just a
request to all the participants, please.
just a small request. You know, the administrator, they have the option of muting all. Please mute everybody. So you do not have to repeatedly ask people to mute themselves.
Great. Okay. So the second quote, which is also relevant to today's topic, is everybody has a story, and there's something to be learned from every experience. And this is also a quote which suggests that experience makes us grow as a person, and the story we we associate with impacts our further journey in life. So stories and experiences are most important for our professional and personal growth. So let us begin by understanding the script, because script is something which is most talked about in the TA community. And Byrne defined script as an ongoing program developed in childhood under parental influence, which directs the individual behavior in the most important aspects of his life. And here some of the key words in this definition makes us understand what script is all about. So ongoing, this means that always moving forward with an element of irreversibility, or it's like a one-way street. Program means there is a well laid out plan. It's a skeleton. And Burns says it can be found in a specific fairy tale. So here is the link with the story. The next one is under parental influence, which means that during interactions with parents and what messages we get from them guides our script side. And directs means it's ordered to comply. So the child has no power in going against that influence or the parental message, and which impacts the most important aspects in life, the events, the major events of that person's life. So this is what Byrne defined as script, and a lot of information is there in the Hello book about the script. He has written it in a very much detail. After Byrne died and after the release of Hello book, the 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 community, the TI people community, worked upon script. And in 1998, William Cornell proposed to distinguish between what he called as a life plan or a psychological life plan and the script or the life script which Byrne has initially defined. I think what when I read this, what I thought was it it is prompting us that how we can develop our script, because because Byrne said life script uh, was a definition of a self-limiting and a self-defending one. So it was used to know how and why a personality is happening and how script is in activation. But the psychological life plan which William Cornell proposed made it what we can do about it. So he defined psychological life plan as a normal healthy process of creating a story that will guide and form the person's latter life, characterized by flexibility and the capacity for continuous change and adapting as a new information is assimilated. So psychological plan will change as information is gathered and considered, sometimes as a result of a significant and unexpected events, and sometimes by refreshing earlier beliefs and making our own general theory. So based on this, we proceed with our life plan. And today's presentation, which I'm going to talk about, is based on this life plan, which we can use for our own betterment, because we have the capacity to change, the continuous change. It is in addition with what Byrne has already mentioned. And let's see how we can explore this further in today's session. So if you have seen in the last two slides, stories is the common factor. In Byrne's definition, it was the fairy tale which was talked about. And in the psychological life plan, it is the stories that which we are narrating to ourselves in our life and the general theory that we are making. So stories aid script development. And the first one is the psychological life plan, because stories make our world. We take part in stories and believe ourselves to be in them as the characters living in them, our own story. Stories have a deep impact on our understanding of self and the world around us. So as children, once we acquire the knowledge, language, and by the age of 3 to 7, in this period, when we acquire language and we start associating with metaphors, and we start associating with metaphors with ourselves, and that's how we start creating the life plans, the psychological life plans, which guides us later in life. So for example, a young child, if it's often told by the parents that this one is a real little helper. So what the child gets from this repeated message from the parents, he picks up that this guy, this little old is very particular. He picks up his toys, sets up his table, and also comforts the sibling. And that's how this praise in form of a metaphor is internalized by the child. The child begins to think for himself, not just as a person, but the tag of the helper. This initial metaphor then expands into a story reflecting the world around this child. The child's narrative now becomes, my role is to be helpful. When I help, people are happy and I feel good. Then he might or actively seek out opportunities to assist others. Finally, his story revolves around this psychological plan as he grows old, and probably he will pursue a career into nursing or social work or teaching. He will draw friendships, people, relationships where his worth is tied up with the helpfulness, and that shapes his entire life and career path and relationships. So this is the first impact of that story on his life plan. The second one, which can be related to the survival tool, stories as a survival tool. When, when a person includes decisions that could be damaging, it can also contain a story, a strategy, or a belief to promote survival. For example, a child, let's talk of a child who was growing up in a chaotic and unpredictable home environment, and where maybe is constantly being witnessed by the conflicts between the parents. And then the child might derive that I need to be invisible or stay safe, or this should not come to me. So his story of survival then navigates through this difficult environment. And as adults, his narrative becomes that I need to be either not belonging or people pleaser so that I am safe. So this makes his potential self-limiting strategy, which is aligned with the story of he being safe, physically safe and mentally safe. So that impacts the survival also. The next one is meaning making and identification. As I told you earlier, the metaphors which the child recognizes from the parents, the child cannot make the meaning of it. The child can only derive some conclusions, some script decisions from it. So everyone around this age creates a meaning making about themselves and their place in the world. This narrative founds becomes the foundation of the identity, and and drafts a blueprint around this identity. For example, if a child is frequently told, if the parents, especially I've seen this mothers or father, they say that, this one is a quite shy or quite, he remains, he has a quiet nature, So this narration, which the child hears, he cannot make a meaning of it. And then he makes a meaning that I am a quiet person and I would prefer to live alone. So this narrative becomes the core part of his identity. They may feel uncomfortable in loud groups, this person, and they choose solitary. Hobbies like reading and avoiding the center of attention could be the base of such individuals. This story helps them understand who they are and how to act in this whole world. The next one is the cultural and community belongings. If we see that culture and community have a greater impact on the child's personality or the growth of it. This is because the culture and the community stories which are being told to the child, these are mostly in form of uh, family stories or community stories which define that existence of that child in that culture or in that community. This leads them to form a narrative centered around these stories. We can see two examples here. One of an individualistic culture society wherein independence and personal space is more celebrated. And then likely the person is going to be likewise. On the other hand, if the person is coming from a community who is into social service or gives importance to community and the community belongings, then his personality is going to get shaped up in the same way. So culture and community stories impact the personality on a greater extent. So what we have seen up till now is not one factor, not one tale or one story is shaping our personality. There are so many dimensions. I'm just covering few here. And in the literature, you will find the research which is being done. So many stories will be linked to uh, why the personality is shaped up in certain fashion. The next one, which appealed to me most, is consciousness and shared reality. So this concept says that stories are the way we map and share our consciousness with others. From children's tales, cultural myths to modern novels, all these are shaping our consciousness. The process of creating scripts is part of this larger picture and how we understand ourselves in this world. And here I would like to give you the example of a Malayalam movie which I saw. Of course, it was dubbed in Hindi, that's why I was able to see it. And that is the Manjumal Boys. If any one of you have seen this story in this picture, this story is about a group of friends who experience a mishap, and it highlights how they overcome it together. So what is happening is they together actively co-created a story of survival. And over time, retelling this story strengthens their bond and they become their collective identity. And this shared narrative creates a shared reality for the group, which influences how they see themselves and the friendships they belong to. So all such stories also impact our past and future interactions with the society, with themselves and the others. The last part is the flexibility and change which the stories offer us in our scripts. And this is the base through which we are going to go ahead in this presentation, because as what we discussed, the psychological life plan is not a rigid one as what we are talking here. It is flexible. It can be changed and updated throughout our life. New information and significant events or a refreshing of an earlier belief can all lead to changing our story and the narratives and improving our life. So in the next coming slides, we will see in detail how we see that how this script is flexible and how we can change it. So let's talk about the development of script now, based on the stories which you are talking about now, how it is integrating in our lives and we are going ahead. So the life plan which we are talking here is a personal explanatory narrative that gives us meaning to the past and provides a blueprint for the present and predicts the future. This narrative is evolving non-pathological process. That means that is continually available for revision. What I'm saying here is the evolvement is on the things which is solvable and which is survivable. I can solve it and it's not life threatening to me, but that improves my script. It progresses my script. The development of my script takes place. These narratives can work upon throughout our life, creating their story to interaction and dialogue. Here comes the change factor, which is rewriting or restoring, that is telling, retelling, and reformulating the stories of great influence, of different influences on our continuing development. This is achieved by choosing our narrative through a constant process of meaning making and problem solving. It isn't a single decision, but it's not that it is taken one time. It is unawarely done, and it's a continuous process, unconscious adaptation to the environment. And that's how we also relate it to the experiencing of life, which we are able to, which we grow, which makes us grow. So let me give you an example. Uh, like we have a certain experience in life, and if you recall that not all the problems which you are having have the same intensity as of today. Over the period, you have got something to do about it, and you are handling it in a better manner. Maybe you are more aware of it. You have found some techniques to handle it in a different fashion. Maybe the result is not what you are expecting, but the whole process of learning cycle is increasing. And that's exactly is what we are talking about. So experiential learning. What is experiential learning? Experiential learning is a widely recognized model for understanding how humans learn and adapt. It is a basic human adaptive process that involves a continuous cycle of these four stages. First is engaging with an experience. Then this experience could be good, discomforting, bad, whatever it is. If it is not good or not, if it is discomforting, unawarely, we are internally reflecting on it. Maybe we avoid it in the next step, or maybe once we face the same situation again, we have our reflection on it, and we may do the same thing what we did last time, or maybe we do something else. So reflecting on it is happening, conceptualizing ideas and theories from that reflection, because the experience which you got earlier has made some difference in you. So the narration, the conceptualization of the idea and the theory is different. And then what we do is experimentation of those ideas, which in turn leads to new experiences, which starts the new learning spiral and continued adaptation. It could be a very small change that could happen in this one cycle, but then that is how we are growing through our experiences. And that's how this experiential learning cycle process progresses, because after the repeated experience is happening, again reflection is happening, conceptualizing of ideas are happening, and our own theory is getting formed. And if you take few minutes of understanding, for example, in professional life, earlier in the professional life, if you are not able to handle certain situations in maybe leadership, in teamwork, or in answering, being assertive or being authentic, maybe through experience, those who are 40, 50 plus, they would say that this is wisdom, this is the experience through which I have learned it. So unawarely, they have also what done, reflected, conceptualized on their ideas, make their own narrative or a theory, and through that progressed. So let's let's go ahead on how we can do this formally. One more example which I can give here, which is, we all have learned cycling, isn't it? So cycling is something which we start, and it's an experiential learning according to me, because everyone can teach you, okay, you have to hold this, paddle this, balance this, but what is happening, you have to need to do it on your own. So the first experience of cycling may be that you were only able to paddle 2, 3 and you fall. But then the next time, maybe you have a guide there, but they're not reflecting on it. Then you have conceptualized it. And finally, you had made it. And in all child development theories, if you see, this is the narrative that the child learns, and what he has to do is the repeated learning cycle. And finally, he makes it. If we same talk about our psychic script, which is the script which is running in our mind, all the limitations which Byrne defined, which are self-defeating, we have to face this one way of looking at it. I don't do that. Okay, I don't get into that situation so that I'm affected, so that I can stay safe. But then that's a limiting for factor for that person. For example, if a person is not able to take up higher post because of his own position, life position, of he not able to lead the team, but eventually in his career he's forced to do that, and then he learns this technique. So first time he may fail, he may completely be unaware of what's happening around with him, but surely once the life experience goes, he finds his way to go ahead, and that's the experiential learning we are talking about. And this experiential learning model was given officially with the model by David Klob. And he said that the experiential learning cycle is something which we witness, we go through, and there are four stages, as I explained earlier: the experience of do, then to look or reflect, then to conceptualize or think about it, and then the change. So the first stage is this is the initial stage where an individual engages in an activity or encounters a new situation. It is the doing part of the cycle. That is what he is witnessing. We are all witnessing our life. So it's witnessing. It is doing that. Then comes the after an experience. The individual takes time to observe what happened. He can recall past experiences and note the feelings and responses. And it's the looking back and the progressing stage. Here, maybe the next two stages may not happen for a person, and he may experience the same do thing and may not reflect also. So first stage can also take place and just repeatedly that incidence is happening with the person. And if he is reflecting, maybe he is reflecting about it, but he doesn't know what to do about it because he cannot conceptualize the as we are script bounded, we are not having that capacity to conceptualize certain way how to get out of this situation. Okay, and this happens with in our personal lives as well. So we end up playing the same old patterns and we don't know what to do about those patterns. Then we are stuck up in the experience and the reflecting. Sometimes we may go ahead conceptualizing something of it because the meaning making it's constantly taking place in our mind. What does it mean? And how can I solve this problem? So the individual proposes and examines the meaning of the experience, establish his own general theory, much like scientists observing, reflecting hypotheses and testing their ideas. So here what the person is doing, he is hypothesizing something and testing it, conceptualizing it. What can I do about it? Is the question he is asking. What are the what is the way to go ahead? Is the prompts which the person is thinking on. And here is the place where the person unawarely forms the script, a personal tested theory. For example, a person might feel like a colleague who is always getting bashed from a boss who is a blamer. So he unawarely they are both into a repeated pattern. So his script is the same, but then he makes there is a in a way he conceptualizes thinking like, and a script is formed where a personal tested theory that if I do that then I'm a bit safe, I don't get into that. And then he provides explanation and blueprint for an individual's behavior, and it also associates with the thoughts and the feelings, what happens to it. So over the period he gets to go with a new script formation. Every time it is possible or not possible, but the learning cycle goes on. Maybe he is not able to do that, but then is what uh, the the experiential learning gets carried on. What is happening here in the earlier stage is his narration changes. His narration changes. He's looking at the same story, and the delivery of that narration changes through this thinking and conceptualizing thing. So individuals then continuously experiment to validate their personal beliefs. So what is happening in the next time? He is making decisions about the behavior and genuinely modifies the existing story in a healthy adaptation. On the contrary, if he is getting the negative evidence only, he is not able to conceptualize things, then what he is doing, he is reinforcing his own racket system. He's reinforcing his own beliefs, and his cycle continues for waiting for the another experience to happen in the same manner. But what is happening then, it becomes a negative learning cycle than the positive learning cycle. When the positive learning cycle is happening, then healthy adaptation is taking place. So this model of David Cobb, which is an experiential learning cycle, is witnessed by all human beings throughout their life journey story. They are all witnessing it. But the success is something which we are looking at, because the transformation is something which we are aiming at. For the disturbing or not that pleasing experiences, We need to be at ease. What we can do about it is something which is of utmost importance here. And in this process, transaction analysis and the concepts, when we can apply with the stories which we are telling and this experiential learning cycle, will make a greater impact for that individual. There are two ways to look at it. One, the person himself, like me, have studied TA for my own benefit. Then through this learning model, I was able to reflect upon the experiences that I had, which I wish to change. Then I had a conceptualized thinking of how TA theory and the concepts can help me out. And then what I did was applying that, experimenting that, and finally that change is coming to pace and it's getting imbibed in my personality. And what I'm experiencing is a new reality. So this can be applied by an individual who is learning TA in an awareness mode, because until now what we were talking about, like cycling, it was an effort which we are trying in a way to make it. But in an awareness fashion, if we can look into this learning cycle, it has a greater impact on achieving the experience and the narrative which we want, the story which we want to tell. This can also be an excellent tool for therapist. It has a therapeutic application. What is happening in therapy is the same thing. The experiences which is narrated by the client, the therapist is only making way for him to reflect, challenge him, and asking him to conceptualize, think. Maybe this is a slow process, maybe it's a fast process, maybe it's a negative process, but the whole therapy moves around this. What happens in the experiment stage is the contract. What are you able to do, the change, the experimentation is the contract. Once the contract is fulfilled and applied by the client, he may succeed or may not succeed, but or may come up with a different issue or a parallel issue with it, or the same issue in a less intensity or more intensity. And again, this learning cycle, like a spiral, goes on, and eventually the experience is getting upgraded and the script development is happening. Let's take one example, a, example of a personality, and then see how we can associate with that. This is a made up example, but then we can add to it using our own therapeutic setups, and how we can associate, we can formulate it and then validate this learning cycle, experiential learning cycle. So these are the four ones. First is what we are talking about is reality experience. What is my current reality? What is happening with me currently? Then I'm reflecting on it, then conceptualizing on it, and then experimenting on it. So let's take an example of this lady. This lady has she wants to overcome the public speaking anxiety, because this person is not able to speak in public confidently. If we go back, we can relate to the stories which we are discussing till now, that what could be the reason. So that is one way of looking at it. But then what she can do while living it, because that's inevitable, at some given point of time she has to speak. So what is her reality? What is the reality in her mind? That I'm terrible at public speaking. That is what her narrative is. And I freeze up. And maybe the reason is everyone is judging me. And what I can do, I feel shy, or I feel embarrassed, or I feel belittled. I don't want to do that. So I avoid the public speaking, taking the center stage. So this is all the streams of stimuluses that is coming in her mind, and that is shaping her reality experience. And that is how she wants to go ahead and consider this situation, that she has to go and narrate, or take there is a place where she has to do some kind of a public speaking. And what happens after this incident is something which we are talking about. And if the person can reflection influenced by her existing narrative, she may highlight the small mistakes which can happen, and recall and associate it with the past narratives, and use the metaphors like my voice is like a tiny whisper. So she can validate her initial reality. but it can also happen that the one good thing which she has done, that she is able to narrate, she is able to have that public speaking opportunity and did it quite well. She might also feel that, okay, and acknowledge the good things that she has done, the positive things she has done. So all these reflection, if she is doing, analyzing her feelings, that intense nervousness, relief when it was over, and compares it to the previous public speaking attempts, then she may acknowledge that something good was also happening. And there is one door open for conceptualizing or going ahead of how she can change her narrative. As I told you, if her outlook is negative towards, then she will reinforce the beliefs, and she will conceptualize the same thing, that she lacks the necessary skills, and solidifies her general theory and the metaphor of a days duck, that I'm not good enough at public speaking. So she may do that. On the other hand, if there is a little positive experience, she may reconceptualize her story and her general theory as I got lucky this time. So she's saying, I got lucky this time, because she wants to keep her core unchanged, because the core will not change suddenly with one experience. It will change throughout that. But what she can do is, if she can reconceptualize that, okay, I can I can be good at certain given space or certain given plan action. Then comes the next is her action, deciding on the options and the consequences of it. So her reconceptualization says, if it is positive, opens up for experiments which can lead to a new reality experience and a changed personality. And a negative experience will deny her future experiments and reinforce her scripty decision. That's the racket system, and make it a negative learning cycle. In any of the case, the experiential learning will have a combination, maybe same or a combination of two, and the changed reality is something which can come up if she changes her narrative to what was achieved than what was not achieved. And to facilitate this whole process is where transaction analysis theory comes into picture, with experiential journey with TA, because the reality experience is awakening the adult ego state. The adult ego state will makes us think that what is happening with me currently in my life, where I'm facing this discomfort. Then this awareness of reflection will give me what what to go do about it. And in conceptualization, the diagnosis which has been done earlier using the various TA concepts and techniques, like the ego states, or the life position, or the stroke theory, and the racket system, and autonomy, and all these will help the person reconceptualize his own narrative. A person, for example, who is saying that I'm not good at maths and I am not able to do anything about it, is actually not helping it. And if he changes narrative with the help of this experience, this learning cycle, then he has an action plan, and the spontaneity, that is the option of choosing his different way of functioning. And again, when this experimentation solidifies this, then that adaptation, positive adaptation, is happening. Lastly, this small learning experiences with aid of TA, because TA is going to fast track it to a way to solve it in a manner, will redescribe the reality. And what Burns says, will put a new show on the road, and the person will gain his autonomy, which is the primary goal of TA, and will be able to make his life more easy and live the life he truly wants to live. So here I would like to conclude my presentation, and that the story we live is an amazing theme for our conference. And I appeal to you to join to this conference, and let's our experiential journey be carry forward with each other. Thank you so much. I'm open to questions.